Hello, this is my informational speech, and my audience today is my girlfriend, my cousin, and both my parents and my other cousin. Alrighty.
What you name?
Alright, Pink Floyd is one of my favorite bands. I've been listening to them as long as I can remember. They started performing in the 1960s, and today they're considered of the classic rock genre. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about their history and success of the band. Getting to know Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd formed in London, England in 1965. The members of the band were in college during the time. The members of the band are Syd Barrett, lead guitar and vocals, Roger Waters, bass guitar and vocals, Nick Mason's the percussionist, and Richard Wright is the pianist. During the 1960s, drugs were a common thing to be found, and Syd Barrett performed in the band for 3 years but got involved with drugs. He took a hit of acid, went on a trip, and never came back from reality. The band had to move forward, and they found their man in David Gilmour, who I personally believe is one of the best guitar players of all time. So the band was comfortable, things were flowing, and in 1967 people wanted to see them, so they started touring. It was then they released their first album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Then by the 1970s they had released 2 more albums, and those titles were Uma Guma and Atom Heart Mother. Then 1971 rolled around and they released another album, and that was by the title of Metal. This was the first CD that the band started getting really good reviews. It's also the showing of something that the band was working on, and that was a concept. It's called the concept album, and I'm just going to play here a clip of what this song sounds like. It's also one of my favorites on the CD, so. So that kind of shows off their unique sound. So, we fast forward here to 1973. And this album is called Dark Side of the Moon. It's not only one of the all-time selling records of all, it's not only one of the all-time selling records of all times. It's also a concept album. The concept album is ideas, either lyrical or musical, that are improvised or brought before the jam session. Then I totally messed that up. Let's see. Okay, so I'll edit this part out. So, okay, a concept album is unified by a theme, either lyrical or musical. The ideas are not thought of while they're in the studio. The ideas are brought beforehand. This album also is the top album of all time on the Billboard Top 200. It was on the it was on the charts for 717 straight weeks, or equivalent to 14 years. I did a little bit of research, and a comparison that I found was in 1991, Metallica's self-debut album, Metallica, was only on the charts for 282 weeks, or roughly about 5 years. So you can see that one album dominated so much more than another album. So, with the success of this particular CD, the band was having a hard time on writing new material. It was then in 1979 that they released another album. It was a concept album, and that's called The Wall. Roger Waters lost his father in the war, World War II, over in Europe. So he had political ties to the city. Also, they had the influence of Syd Barrett because he couldn't perform in the band because of his drug problem. So Roger wanted to represent his buddy in The Wall. And then also in 1982, a cult film, The Wall, was released, and this film features regular film with animations. So in 1980, Roger Waters was having a hard time getting along with the band, and he wanted to become the sole leader. He wanted to do everything his way, and the other three members of the band didn't agree with what he was saying. So David Gilmour decided to step aside and do a solo album, and this upset Roger Waters as well. In 1985, it was official. Roger had left the band. Pink Floyd continued playing as a band minus Roger. Roger Waters went on a solo career, but was not as successful as the three remaining members of Pink Floyd. Roger also sued them in 1985 for using his band name, Pink Floyd, because he believed he was Pink Floyd, because he was responsible for writing so many of the songs or ideas that the band had. So flash forward here to 2005. The band had spent 20 years apart, and it was here for an event, Live 8, that the band decided to finally come together and play again. And this was important not only for the fans who waited so long to see the band, but more importantly, the band was able to put aside their differences of 20 years of not being able to perform, to actually have a chance of playing a show together. In 2006, Syd Barrett passed away. Even though he wasn't conscious, he was still around, but he officially died in 2006. And Richard Wright also died in 2008, leaving Roger, Nick, and David as the only three surviving members. Alright, so with the popularity of this band, you're able to find their merchandise virtually anywhere. They're the 9th best-selling artist of all time according to Billboard Top 200 records. They released 14 studio albums and many hits, single hits that you hear on today's airwaves. So now that I've told you about the history and success of the band, if you haven't heard of the band before, hopefully I've sparked a new interest for you. Alrighty, thanks.